This is an open letter to Mr. Robert Kennedy uh, and the rest of the Saint Society. Salute. Here's the thing, sir, Mr. Kennedy. Uh, un- the problem is not that your problem is that you don't belong to a fraternity. The fraternity of the Democratic Party and there's a fraternity of the Republican Party, and the 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 show has become so expensive that you have to have your own crew, circus crew. A simple circus is one guy standing next to a road and juggling a couple of balls. That's a simple circus. It only needs him to decide to go to work and what kind of quality of work he's willing to put an effort in for. But when you have a circus, you know only good quality acts are allowed into the circus, and only fraternities with access to a lot of cash can put can show put up a you know good volume of entertainment. And the whole planet apparently runs on entertainment. I mean, one of the good qualities of Trump is that he's an entertainer. In this system of this system of this format of government that you have adopted, in this format of government, if you're if you're a performer, if you like to perform, then that's a very big positive thing for you, because fraternities are want need to put on a show. I mean, why did your family didn't vote for you? Because they belong to the democratic fraternity. They belong to the democratic fraternity. Therefore, you don't have a fraternity. Libertarians had a chance of making you the leader of their fraternity in this circus, but you can't count on libertarians. Libertarians are the oddballs. And those are the guys who one believes in total absolute open gun carry, that becomes a libertarian, and another one who believes in whatever, full Ayn Rand, kind of economy. It's like slave owners. They all end up in the Libertarian Party, from that far right and to the other far right. So, and they never agree on anything. So these are the oddballs. You want to be the leader of the oddballs? No. So, you know, uh, I think your appeal should be to the general public, and I mean, you missed the boat, and with regards to Israel Palestine, you missed the boat because the general public idea is that wherever there is killing, it's a bad idea. Let's have the killing stop. But you went with as good as is. So there you missed the boat. But my point is this: your main problem is you're not part of a fraternity, you know, and you don't have any policies that would favor any fraternity, because you're a little about building building our own home, and you know military industry is much more profitable than let's build a home. build our home. Defense is much more profitable. So offense, at this point you're providing the weapons, the Israelis are hitting them with your weapons. So who's taking the action and who's providing arms, it's who's responsible. I mean, this is South Africa, more or less South Africa, when they needed, you know, they didn't need weapons because they, at the very end, they ended up killing civilians in large numbers, and still, Uncle Sam's managers were in favor of it. It's like, yeah, that's okay. How much money do you need? The Afrikaners. How much money do you need? That's a fraternity. You're white, they're white. You feel a fraternity. You see, this is the planet-wide problem. Race is a fraternity. Religion is a fraternity. All around, these fraternities are not getting along when you have war. I mean, Israel is a fraternity. It's a fraternity. There are some Orthodox folks, some Orthodox Ashkenazi and some secular Ashkenazi, but they all belong to a fraternity. You can tell it's a fraternity. Fraternity has a fraternity dance, I'm told. So, a special dance they do, whatever it is. All fraternities have special. I mean, Mr. Pompeo went and, danced the dance of fraternity with the frontline soldiers of the pink skin fraternity. You feel so much like them because it's your fraternity. Haven't you noticed? You're both white. Yeah, you like to say, oh yeah, their hair is a little wavier than our hair. I'm sorry. We the brown and the black and the red and the yellow and the green don't really see you two as different. So they're all Eastern Europeans. The top brass of that runs that place. The top brass are all Eastern European and Russian and some Western European. What does that tell you? I mean, they're European, and they stand next to European leaders. They're all the same color to the viewer. They're all pink, European. So you're telling me you don't see this. Here's the thing. They don't see it. You don't see it. Nobody who's white sees it because you don't want to recognize that you're in a fraternity of white people. Just like now Africans in West Africa they're trying to form a fraternity of black people where they're those small countries that the British and the French have carved out of Africa. They basically got the idea that they made us small so they can fuck with us for all eternity. If Africa was three big countries, nobody could fuck with them. But Africa of itsy bitsy parts, everybody can fuck with them. Anyway, Burkina Faso and Mali and Malawi, it's like very small portions that the British have created. Portions of the land. These guys are now separate. Now they all have a national interest, and they don't care much about international interest. Forget about international. Many of their leaders are in the mindset of a village prophet. But my village was great. That's all this civil war is about. They don't recognize a country. They don't. They know their tribe. The point is the tribe, Mr. Kennedy. The tribe is the problem. The tribal fraternity is a tribe, and Harvard fraternity and Yale fraternity and the CIA fraternity and the FBI fraternity and the military fraternity and the civil service fraternity and political fraternity all these fraternities create a layered society, which we call caste system. Fraternities are the very building blocks of a caste system, of a very rigid caste system. Fraternities, simple word of fraternities, the simple idea of fraternity. If you can create the fraternity of mankind, that would be ideal, you know. But you're not there. So maybe you can appeal to the fraternity of mankind, but then you have to be even-handed. You can see that Europeans have landed in West Asia. They're getting rid of the brown people by any means necessary. As Malcolm X put it, you have to call that. You can't say no. That's they are part of my fraternity. So you're saying, okay, I'm part of the white fraternity. Okay, now you lost half the country. You see what I'm saying? You know, half, 60%, 50, 60% white, the rest. If you devalue the life of brown, black, red, yellow, green people, if you devalue their life, you lose their vote. That's what Mr. Biden has found out, that they're brown because that's why they identify with those brown people. Some of them even speak the same language as those brown people. That's their fraternity. They are up in arms here because we are killing people from their fraternity. Tribe, fraternity. Fraternity of Arabic speaking people. There is a fraternity of Arabs, and there is a fraternity of Arabic speaking people, and then there's a fraternity of Muslim, and then there is a fraternity of brown people, and then you see you're trying to do everything for the benefit of the fraternity of pinkskins, and you're expecting not to lose the vote from the black and the brown people. You're just going after the benefit of the pink-skin fraternity, and you think you can't, you won't lose vote of half, 50% home, and you lose 80% votes from abroad. If you continue siding with your fraternal pink-skin brethren, and go and do the brethren dance that Mr. Pompeo did with the Israelis, that was a fraternity. And he's a Christian, because Zionism is a fraternity of people, Europeans, who have decided they need to expand their empire into Asia. Europeans have decided that there is a need to expand an European empire into Asia. And don't tell me Israel is not an European state. They do their football with European League. They do their basketball with European leagues. They do their dancing and singing with European leagues. I'm sorry, beside their location that's in Asia, everything they do is European. They build suburbans. They build suburbs in the European idea or North American idea of what is a suburb for themselves. And it's a fraternity, therefore the Arabs can't get in, because it's a fraternity. You have to be Jewish, or at least more Jewish than us. You should be Zionist. You have to believe we have the right as Europeans to come and take over this land, because 3,000 years ago the deed was in our name. Fuck, 1,000,000 years ago half of Africa was in my deed. Let's pull it back, Mr. Kennedy. Just go back to the line. We all came out from Africa, right? Many of us had an ancestor in Africa, right, at one point. So I had an ancestor in Africa. Should I claim half of Africa? Because one of my ancestors was, the first one who stood up. All of our ancestors was the first one who stood up from the kneeling position. The idea that you come and say that, but because at 3,000 years ago, at one point, these guys, the deed was in their name, now it has to go back. at some point that deed was in the name of the Neanderthals. Should we go back to the Neanderthal times, find me some Neanderthal? Should we turn the deed to them? How far back you want to go, and how far forward you want to go? The current history, they're brown and Arab. 10,000 years ago, they were brown and Arab. 3,000 years ago, somehow there were some pink-skinned Europeans were the owners of this land, and we have to go back to that time. Was there ever a time that pink-skinned Europeans were in charge of Israel, Palestine? Yes, during the Crusades, for some time, I guess, the Europeans were in charge over there. But, according to the geography, which apparently nobody has studied, that area is in West Asia. There is Asia, there is Africa, there is Europe, and there is North America. And all the boundaries are more or less clear. Why are some Europeans living in Asia and they don't even want to blend into the local population? They want to rule over the local population or kick the local population out. And that's a good thing, because anything you have to do by force, Mr. Kennedy, anything you have to do by force, that means you're working against nature. You're trying to force some white people to move into West Asia. Israel has one of the highest cancer rates in the world. One of the highest cancer, even after they have introduced protective measure, because at one point apparently Israel was number one in world cancer, skin cancer, carcinoma at one point. And now with a lot of preventive measures and a lot of chemicals and this and that, we're going to protect ourselves, although the fucking sun doesn't match our skin. Because it's a fraternity, sir. Because it's a fraternity. And fraternities, have you noticed, they don't make good decisions. They start in fraternities, and have you noticed fraternities that in colleges sometimes they have their casualties, people who went a little farther than they should in their fraternity entrance exam. They went a little farther than they should and they die. Well, fraternities have the tendency to go overboard a lot, because it's a group mentality. It's a tribal mentality. Tribal mentality was fine when there was a lot of distance between tribes. Now with the connectivity of internet, the distance between tribes is very short. Because you sleep, you get up, and you can see. And unless you're planning on cutting all internet cables, just cut them and say, okay, now we can't see any images from that tribe over there that we are screwing up the ass. Our people cannot see any of those images, so go ahead now, do whatever you want. But with the idea of your population seeing those images, and you think that you can somehow brush it aside and say, yeah, so what, they're not part of our fraternity, we are white, we are Europeans, and those motherfuckers are brown. That's your position. That's all the three candidates' position, you and Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden. And it's understandable. You don't want to lose the rich white vote, especially the rich white vote. That's a no-no. So, because that's the majority of your donors, because it's the rich white folks who pay into the coffers of these fraternities, that is the Democratic Party and Republican Party. The whole message behind vote blue no matter who is the message that tells me nobody got the real idea of democracy. Democracy is better ideas when vote blue no matter who is, let our fraternity must win. Our fraternity. And the funny thing is, most of the ideas of the fraternity, the two fraternities are the same with regards to, especially with regards to the colonies or areas that hoping to be colonies and having a lot of expenditure, spending money to maintain status or expand the colonies is, colonies that belong to the fraternity of rich white folks. Sir, nobody on the planet, outside of the pink-skinned empire, which is bombarded between fake fight between MSNBC and Fox, fake fights. The rest of the planet who's not, in tone with your theater, which is, Fox and MSNBC. The rest of the world who's not in tune with your theater, they're out of step. They don't understand what are you talking about. They can see the images and they're upset. And there is not a single candidate, I guess, beside the Jewish Marianne Williamson, nobody else is for peace. Everybody else is for fraternity. So you're not really distinguishing yourself enough. Here's my point, Mr. Kennedy. You're not really distinguishing yourself from the pack. You're just another white guy running for office at this point. Just another white guy who also follows the same step by step, follows in the footsteps of other white guys. So first of all, you're not part of the fraternity, but you're also following the same uh, schedules, holding the same ideas as fraternities. So what's the difference? No, most of your uh, your foreign policy ideas, most of them are basically status quo. Everything is good, we sit down and talk, and you're not saying something that is really causing a lot of trouble, that is an idea. Zionism is an idea that white people have some right to brown people land, and both fraternities have this belief, are the followers of this idea, this fraternity. Zionism is another fraternity. These people are, members of that, feel they're members of that fraternity, or are they members of that fraternity, or want to be members of that fraternity. You know, there is a, representative from New York, a young black guy from New York. Has a very Zionist ideas, and I'm thinking to myself, a young black kid in New York becomes a representative, and he thinks Zionism is. He wants to belong to the fraternity of Zionism. Zionism is basically a group of people deciding that we have a destiny in such and such a piece of land, and we're going to go with there and meet with our destiny. Damn it! And whoever we have to displace from that area to meet with our destiny, we are willing to do that, and whatever it takes. That's, the whole Wild West. I mean, the same, the current president, the gentleman, these folks have really, gone out of their way to appease the Native Americans. At the same time that the same shit is happening to the natives of another land, that's mind-boggling. That's sort of like, if you learned the lesson, you wouldn't be, assisting in continuing you know, unreasonable way of expanding the empire. If you have understood the lesson, you wouldn't be doing this. You didn't understand the lesson. Therefore you're doing this. Well, yes, and you are not separating yourself from the pack there. You you more or less don't have, from what I picked up from the news, and I do, you know, enjoy following the news. I haven't seen you differ from them at all. If you wanna literally hold a hold a if you really want to, make it fun, you should hold a very SNL type uh, mock debate with the two other candidates, and come prepared and with good materials. You can beat them at an SNL type kind of a fake debate, but which is not really fake. You bring up issues and you express your opinion, which will differ from both of their opinions, and have some comedians or actors be in that mock-up. If they don't let you be part of the debate because you don't belong to a fraternity, this is how you fix it. You make their debate, devalue their debate by making a joke about it, but at the same time stating how your views are different from the old rich boy network. How your views are different from the rich white old boy networks. How your views are different. Up to now, we haven't noticed your views are any at all different. Not having a fraternity and not having a uh, very radical ideas, radical in good terms, not in bad, in a good way, radical in a good way than in bad way. Sort of like, you know, radical meaning 180 degrees different from the fraternities. Because here's the thing, Mr. Uh, Mr. Kennedy. Here's the thing: these fraternities, if either one of them had any good ideas, it wouldn't be going downhill for a long while now. Not in terms of we need more military power. Not that in terms of downhill, in terms of that. Downhill in terms of how much more educated the children come out of the educational system. How much more skilled. Forget about learned, skilled. How well skilled the children that this educational system produces, how well skilled they are to handle life. If your educational system doesn't provide such skills, then why do you have an educational system? And how is your views different from the fraternities, Mister? You see, you want to be the real maverick. Mr. McCain was pushing the ideas of the richest families of Arizona forward. You know, and he called himself maverick. It's like you can't represent. You know, Robin Hood was a maverick. You can't be the tax collector and be the maverick. Anyway, you can't be married to the richest, the tax collector of the state, and consider yourself as a, you know, progressive or maverick. But the point is this: to win against the fraternities, you have to really be a maverick. And maverick means 180 degree different ideas than either one of the fraternities, because both of them have beside military, everything else has gone downhill. The whole quality of life, and you know the spring in the steps. Here's the thing: you watch old movies from Europe and North America. You see a spring in the black and white ones, 30s, 40s, 50s. There is a spring in people's step. There is a spring. I mean, what are your ideas about Hollywood selling us dystopias? 90% of the time, they pump out dystopian movies and series and entertainment, and people, you know, again, entertainment runs the planet. So entertainment gives them ideas. Entertainment describes the world to them, and your Hollywood and your entertainment industry has been pushing dystopia over utopia 9 out of 10 times. And you know, what are your ideas about that? I mean, this freedom, okay, freedom, but are you kidding me? Okay, freedom, but you don't want any laws to prevent chaos? If you don't have any laws to prevent chaos, in terms of, you know, the dystopian entertainment that is produced and fed to the people watch anything. People watch football. 12, you know, 22 people kicking the ball around, running around the ball in a field. People find almost anything entertainment. I mean, that's why, back to where we started, you're not as entertaining as Mr. Trump. You're not showing that you're maverick with regards to your views with entertainment, and how what the authorities have to come up with some better ideas than let's feed them dystopia and crime and sadness the whole time. Sex and drugs, and sex and violence. Sex, violence, and drugs. Sex, violence, and drugs. So you have no ideas regarding that. You have the same ideas as the fraternity regarding to those. You have this fraternity of Democrats and Republicans. You have your ideas with regards to tax is the same as them. You're not standing out, Mr. Kennedy. You want to stand out, come up with these maverick ideas, which is 180-degree different from the runners, the representatives of the fraternities. You come up with 180 degrees different ideas than them. You say, okay, no, I think the Palestinians have a right over there. They need the fighting needs to stop right now, and there needs to be a one country. Either take out the racist ideas of separation of races, separation of the Europeans from the natives. Either take that idea out and form one country and run it like New York is being run. There are all kinds of races and genders in New York, right? And everything is more or less okay. The same can be done in Israel. Nothing really bad should happen by including one race or another. And usually nothing bad happens as long as everybody is treated fairly. So why can't you be for that? Either a two-state, but Israel will not. The first time the two-state solution broke down was because Israel would not give permission to Palestinians to have an army. First of all, you don't live in one piece of land, you live in two pieces of land. Second of all, you can't have an army, a military. You can only have a police force. That's not a country, that's a refugee camp. My point is this. None of your ideas are different from the fraternities. You're not showing yourself to be a maverick, and you're not an entertainer. I'm sorry, this form of democracy that you have chosen, this form of governance that you have chosen to follow, you have to be a circus act. You have to be an entertainer. The more entertaining you are, the more airtime you get. And and everybody loves a victim. So everybody loves a victim, an underdog. And it seems, Mr. Trump has become the underdog. Need I spell it out to you? It's now or never. You have to have your own. If they don't allow you in the debate, make it comedy sketch out of it, but get your points across 180 degrees from them. Show you're different from the fraternity. And again, I repeat, if any ideas that these two fraternities, which they both more or less have the same ideas with regards to economy, how the rich people should rule, with regards to expansion of the empire, with regards to lack of education, housing, and health for the natives, our own household, with total disregard to those, and a lot of attention to limits of the empire, and So the point is this: either you're very different from these fraternities and stand out, or nothing is going to happen. Your ideas has fraternities have had some executives have some bad ideas around the world. Domestically, some of their ideas have been good and everything has been peaceful, thank God. But internationally, a lot of their ideas have been very costly for the natives. Let's just put it that way. And that's the whole joke about celebrating the natives that we are defeated and still fighting the natives that we haven't defeated. After we eliminate the race, we will celebrate the few remaining. That's the whole idea with the zoo. Sort of like we go out and hunt them, and we grab a few of them and show them to you in the zoo. You know, we hunt in the wild. We hunt them to extinction, but we will keep a few for the zoos to fill our zoos. So that's the whole idea with the white people and the natives. Sort of like we will kill them until almost the last few. Then we keep a few as souvenirs, and we celebrate them. So here's the thing, sir. You have to become a maverick. With regards to Palestine, Israel, Palestine, you have to really be on the side of the brown people because it's the right side of history, and most people recognize it. Uh, you have to become an entertainer, and your voice doesn't help. It's not an entertaining voice, let's face it. So you have a lot of handicap. You're not a handicap, but you have a lot of handicap, and your voice is one of them. And but your strength, the only strength that you can have, Mr. Kennedy, is to have maverick ideas. And maverick ideas almost have 180-degree different idea than those who are running, these fraternities who are running. 180. With regards to China, I'm saying no. I'm going to shake hands, kiss their cheek. We're gonna sit down, and we don't care. China produces everything. We're producing. Good for them. We try to produce too, but we don't want to have military bases surrounding China. It's no need for that. We draw the line at Hawaii. You keep order on that side of the Pacific. We keep order on this side of the Pacific. In southern hemisphere, we draw the line at Panama. We say Brazil and Argentina keep order in in the southern hemisphere. Australia, let them keep order over there. China, let them keep over. This is how system is going to work. If there is system to be worked, you keep order. Draw some lines in the ocean. You can't go up the Chinese ass in Taiwan. And the way I read something about it, beside Taiwan, there is another smaller island, which is like a jump that belongs to Taiwan, which is literally a hand throw away from the Chinese mainland. That's part of Taiwan. That's just, are you fucking kidding me? That's madness. You're going up their ass. You don't agree with their form of governance, so you're going up their ass trying to protect yourself. Sir, would you consider somebody going up your ass? Would you consider that as a kind of protection for them, or is it intrusion for you? If somebody comes up my ass, that's an intrusion for me. That's not protection for them. What the fuck are you talking about? Here's the thing. The Taiwan issue, China is on the right. To be 180 degrees different from the fraternities, you have to say, no, I draw the line in Hawaii. We keep order, peace, order and peace this side. You, China, you're the big brother over there with the help of your neighbors, keep order on that side. You can't do that. There is nowhere it says that you can't do that. No. Southern Hemisphere, draw the line at Panama. Again, you can't do that. You don't need to keep order in the Persian Gulf, because when you look at the map of North America, there's no Persian Gulf around it. But the problem is, you're sort of like, either we are in charge or we are going to participate in some malicious activity in order to create a couple of wars, and then we can come and be in charge. No, don't create malicious activity in order to be in charge. Don't arm Saddam, then come and subdue Saddam at a later point in order to establish your presence. These are all colonial tactics. The fraternities know this and like it, and fraternities of CIA are okay with colonial ideas. Fraternity of FBI is okay with the colonial idea. Fraternity of the civil service in Washington are okay with colonial ideas. They have, they have swallowed, because they have become part of the fraternity. That's why these civil servants, as representatives in the United Nations, turn out all these black and brown people, these civil servants, or any politicians that are sent to United Nations, or the fucking British who have chosen that brown boy, as their leader. This is just a figurehead. We all know that. It's just a part of they have invited a brown or a black guy to be part of a fraternity, but you follow the fraternity. You don't, let your mouth start moving without first clearing it with the fraternity. That's why, Malcolm X is dead and Al Sharpton is alive, because Al Sharpton has bought into the fraternity. I mean, he doesn't go anywhere without cufflinks. That's the fraternity of rich white men who allowed Al Sharpton to, hold the door open, do something over there. You either break away from the both fraternities who both have more or less the same ideas. You say, I'm going to make peace with China, or we're going to increase trade with China. We're going to increase trade with China, we're going to increase trade with Russia, we're going to increase trade with Europe, we're going to build universities in Europe. You don't have enough universities yourself. The situation has become so lopsided, Mr. Kennedy, that at one point in the 40s and 50s, you had American universities all over the Middle East and Africa. Then, within a period of 30, 40 years, when the military industrial complex took over and everything became classified, over that period, all the universities that the United States had around the world turned into military bases. We used to export professors, now we are exporting soldiers. Are you fucking kidding me? And you think the fraternity's ideas about this is good. It's like we have to enforce our will. No, you really don't. You're not even doing good for your own people. What do you mean we have to enforce our will because our will is just? Are you fucking kidding? Your will is not even just at home. The income disparities is so wide that your just is not even your just system, that you think you have a very just system that is so good and great that you have to export it. It's called freedom and democracy. It's so great that you have to export it, but then it's not even working for yourself or for your own citizens in terms of housing, healthcare, and especially education. It's not even working for your own people because all the investment is going to the military. And it's all about, protecting somebody from somebody else over there because this somebody is a good somebody and that somebody is a bad somebody. Are you fucking kidding me? Here's the thing. Japanese are good and Chinese are bad because they follow our form of governance. Do they have peace and security? That's good. Why do you care what form of government they have? Peace and security eventually, will form as it's a meritocracy. China is a peace, security, and is a meritocracy. The way they put so much emphasis in education, and it is a meritocracy. And apparently Russia is a meritocracy. The fucking Putin has got, some information to dispense. Which one of your senators have a lot of information to dispense? George W. Bush had a lot of information to dispense. Clinton had a lot of information to dispense. None of these folks have a lot of information to dispense. They didn't get their job because they are both have a high IQ and they are a chest of information. No, they got there because they were part of the fraternity. Mr. Bernie Sanders didn't get it at his age that he's not part of the fraternity. He can't just throw his hat in the ring into the Democratic fraternity's ring and expect to come ahead of Hillary Clinton at the last moment. I mean, he was an independent, then he ran on the Democratic ticket. That's a guy from outside the fraternity trying to get into the fraternity and become the president of fraternity. You got to have some chutzpah to not to be in a fraternity, but expecting to go in and become the president of fraternity within one election cycle, like a year or two, running on, another fraternity's ticket that you never belong to. So Bernie Sanders' ideas again with regards to foreign policy, white old boy network, status quo, like everything is fine. No, everything is not fine. A lot of places that they're not willing to bend the knee are taking it up the ass. This is not, and your presence makes that so. It's sort of like I'm the police and I collect the taxes. Now bend over. This is how you're running the empire, and it's costing you your own educational system. It's costing you your own housing, your own citizens' education. It's costing your own citizens' housing, and it's costing your own citizens' healthcare. The answer to why do Europeans have healthcare and we don't because we paid a lot for the military, the answer to that is not that let's start a war in Europe and let them put more money in their military. The answer to that is that no, 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 let us spend less out in our military so we have some money left over for health, education, and housing. Do you see the problem here, Mr. Kennedy? Do you see the problem? The problem that both candidates, in terms of how much money should go where, both fraternities are for sending money to Israel and Ukraine and wherever else we think is willing, whoever else we think is willing to stand up to our enemies. Why enemies? Why China is an enemy? They got a system, we got a system. It wouldn't be for the Chinese to try to come and protect the independence of, I believe it was Catalina Island. So there is an island kind of peninsula kind of piece of land off the California coast. You think the Chinese should, you know, bring their ships, warships and planes around the Catalina Island and find somebody in Catalina Island who's willing to declare independence and then say, they follow our system of government and we approve of that and we approve of their independence in Catalina Island. I think it was Catalina Island. Where is that island there are many islands off the coast of California. You don't accept that. You say, fuck you, China has no right to come and protect the independence of Catalina Islands from us. It's a stone throw from us. What business does China have to come here to protect somebody from somebody else? But you're not saying that. You're following the fraternity. So in every sense, you are following the fraternity, but unfortunately you don't even belong to a fraternity. So your running is basically useless. You're not going to win because you don't even have maverick ideas. Your ideas are the same ideas as the fraternity because you think you belong to those fraternity. You yourself, you want to belong to those fraternities. You're upset that they don't accept you in their fraternity. And they're not, they're not taking you serious in their fraternity. You're upset about that, and it's understandable. You're not standing out from those fraternities. The problem is not blending in and being taken seriously as a democratic candidate. That's not the idea. The idea is, you shouldn't want to be part of that club because the two fraternities have been moving down the wrong path. Mr. Bolton has been advising both sides. Just recently I saw one of these comedians from Daily Show. The gentleman had a face-to-face in a very, here is the wise man speaking, sit down with Mr. John Bolton. The John Bolton, which is for invading everywhere all the time, a supposedly progressive Democrat, was having a heart-to-heart with him, and not in a sarcastic way, but in a serious way. This guy is right. John Bolton never has any right ideas. He's a fraternity man. He wants to be part of the fraternity. Being part of the fraternity is his whole life. If being accepted as a part of rich white old boy network, that's what has been his goal in life, his whole life. Because he came from a middle class, poor or middle class family. So he's more for the boss than the boss is for himself in terms of the black slave of the plantation owner in Django Unchained. I mean, he's more worried about the boss than the boss himself. Sir, your solution is to be the maverick and be accept taking 180-degree different, the opposite solution for all these problems, because these folks have been taking us downhill. All their solutions are causing more problems, not less problems. And they're both for Israel, they're both more or less for Ukraine, they're both more or less for domination by brute force, they're more or less for let's increase our military bases. You don't have enough universities at home. Once upon a time, as I said already, once upon a time you used to export universities. Now you import educated and export military bases. One point you used to educate other races, other tribes, other fraternities. Then you decided to go to war with other fraternities. Soviet Union was one. They wanted to manage like that. You could have had a good relationship with them, and eventually, through good relationship, they would find it unnecessary to follow a very bad idea for a long time. The very bad idea of communism was followed through for a very long time, just out of ego. Because you kept on saying, you blockaded them, you fought them, you blockaded them, and they had no choice but to stick with it because of the ego. It would have been much more, pleasant to just trade normally with them until they figure it out for themselves. Maybe it's not such a great idea. But the problem is your system is not such a great idea because it's letting anybody without any information qualification, without any intelligence qualifications, without any of that, your system allows each fraternity to send in a candidate who may not be the brightest and who may not be the best educated and who may be talking out of his ass, but because the fraternity has chosen him as president, the fraternity of the Republican Party has chosen Trump as president, and the fraternity of the Democratic Party has chosen Mr. Biden as president. And nobody has invited you to the circus, the act that has been put together. Sir, you either have to make a big bang by taking 180-degree different position than both of the fraternities and stick to it. That 180-degree difference should actually, you have to stick to it, because if this path was the right path, after 75 years they're still killing each other. So this just says it's not the right path. If they're still killing each other after 75 years, it can't be a right path. The right path is New York. The right path in Ukraine is leave the mother and daughter alone. Don't fund Ukrainian nationalism. Leave the Ukrainians to the Russians, and before more of them are dead. Because they're so close, they have to be able to work with each other. You have no business funding anything in Ukraine or Georgia. The NPR reporters, for example, today, one of these NPR reporters, one of these, one of these Arab-sounding NPR reporters, Layla Fadel, was saying that how it is this Georgia's law about, if any, this is the law that Georgia has passed, that if any organization in our country receives more than 20% of their funding from other countries, That organization should be identified. They should identify themselves. The NPR reporter, NPR, Leila Fadel, in her script, I'm sure somebody has written that this is the same law as a Russian law. That this, if there's a new organization which is funded more than 20% from other countries, in our country, they should be identified. Leila Fadel is telling us, very informed person from NPR is telling us that no, this is a copy of a Russian law, and it's a bad law because blah blah blah. I guess freedom, democracy, one of these two. And then, but she doesn't say, it's not part of her script to say that no, actually this is part of the American law as well, and the British have the same law, and the French have the same, and every sane nation on earth has the same law, because they don't want entities from outside their borders who don't have to live in their borders have too much say of what's going to take place within their borders, because they might not mean well. Let me repeat that. Organizations, entities from outside our borders should not be able to invest in ideas within our borders, because they don't have to live with its consequences, because they don't live here. That's a sane idea. If they don't live here, they don't have to live with the consequences, so they don't get a vote. They don't get to invest in ideas in our country. They don't get to invest in ideas in our country because they're not living here. So they wouldn't have to live under its results, consequences. So they don't get to have a say. That's a sane idea. But you have hired somebody with an Arabic name, and they have hired NPR, somebody with an Arabic name, and they have given her a script to read about Ukraine and about Georgia, and this is what she reads. That this is a draconian law after a Russian law to prevent freedom and democracy. Mr. Bob Menendez is in jail right now, taking it up the ass. You think he's there because he wanted to be there? No. He's there because you, Uncle Sam's managers, have very restrictive laws about foreign agents. Very restrictive. If you receive a penny from a foreign entity to affect the laws that we have to live in, which that foreign entity doesn't have to live in, live with these laws. If you receive money from a foreign entity, we're going to hang you from your nuts. This is the idea. That's the law that Uncle Sam has on books. So therefore, Bob Menendez is is not a very good condition right now. So any sane country has such a law, but then to demonize Georgia and to demonize Russia and to demonize a fraternity that is not our fraternity, Anglo-Saxon fraternity, rich white Anglo-Saxon, I believe they call it WASP, or in terms of Israel is going to be WAJ. But the idea is that these fraternities are killing your planet. These wars are continuing because these wars are wars of fraternity. My fraternity over your fraternity. And if you recognize this, Mr. Kennedy, along with other ideas that would make a better society with regards to entertainment, with regards to education, how much responsibility we have in order to keep order in every nook and cranny of planet Earth, that costs a lot of money. Why our children are not being educated, but we are expanding money to protect Manila from Shanila? You see where I'm going with this? You're protecting Manila from Shanila. Manila and Shanila should work together. Manila and Shanghai should work together to create some kind of peace. Draw the line at Hawaii, and you keep the peace on this side of the planet, just like you have done so with Your responsibility is to keep peace between Canada and Mexico. The three, Canada and Mexico, and hopefully those shit shows below Mexico until the Panama Canal. Uncle Sam's manager's responsibility should be this. That's it. To mid-Atlantic on that side and to Hawaii on this side. End of the business. You folks, and don't allow CIA to participate in nefarious activity, which will always result into, you know, pinkskins having to rush in to save. That's one way of expanding your military bases. You create some kind of shit show, some kind of anarchy, then so which the pinkskins, the pinkskin fraternity has to go in and save. Don't create the anarchy to begin with. The Russians were having an understanding with the Afghans and trying to bring them into a 20th century, but the Anglo-Saxons decided to go and arm the Afghan, uneducated Afghan, arm them to fight for their freedom. Fuck you. Somebody needed to be responsible for Afghanistan because Afghanistan is a landlocked country with mountainous landlocked country that is usually worth more trouble than it's worth. So the Soviet Union was actually doing a favor to trying to bring some kind of order to that shit show that is difficult to bring order to. You tried it for 20 years to bring order to shit show. Why did you bother the Russians? Why did you bother the Soviets to bring some kind of order to that shit show? No, we have to arm the Afghans. They're good. They're fighting for Allah. Some uneducated cocksuckers. Anyway, my point is this, sir. Forgive my bad language. Here's the thing, sir. Either you sit separate. The fraternities are not accepting you. The fraternities are not accepting you. Either you become the real maverick that Mr. John McCain wanted to be, and take policy position 180 degrees difference from the policy decisions of these fraternities. And believe me, almost any policy decision that is exactly opposite their policy decision is going to be the right decision. Almost every. Therefore, tax cuts. No, the right thing is to increase the taxes. If you want to keep capitalism, you have to increase the taxes, or else is going to the social inequality is going to be so bad that communism would seem a great idea. So before that happens, you have to increase that taxes to like 90% to to literally bring the rich down peacefully before the revolution. So almost every idea that these fraternities have is a bad idea. Less taxes is a bad idea, especially for the uber rich. Less taxes is a bad idea. It's a good idea if you're going towards fascism. When you go towards fascism, where the industrialists and the government go hand in hand, which they are, as apparently Northrop Grumman and Boeing. Boeing is so hand in glove with the Federal Aviation Administration. They are so hand in glove with them that the Federal Aviation Administration doesn't even hire the necessary personnel to check their work. They have allowed Boeing to check their own work. One of their employees would be certified by the Federal Aviation Administration to check the work of his co-workers. This is how such a bad ideas these fraternities have had, that these monopolies have formed, which have become so careless, nonchalant with regards to life of people. Boeing is the same Boeing that produces ammunition. So you can tell Boeing's mentality is like, okay, if you die in a plane, if you die under a shell, we got them all. This is what people know now, Mr. Kennedy, that you have to take the exact opposite position. put the military industry, military contractors out of business and say, nope, we are not having any of it. We are just protecting from Hawaii to the mid-Atlantic. We are protecting from Panama to the center of North Pole. End of story. And we're going to concentrate on education, housing, and health of our citizens, period. And we're going to go with whatever the fuck United Nations majority decides in international matters. And economically, we're going to tax the uber rich up the ass, 90%. That's the only way to do it. And that's none of these positions are taken by the fraternities. There's no money in it. You know, there is no circus in it. There is no theater in it. There is no tribalism in it. There is no fraternity in it. These people live with fraternity. There's a Fox News is their own fraternity, and the Watchers are a fraternity, and the MSNBC is a fraternity, and the Harvard is a fraternity, and the Yale is a fraternity, and the Democratic Party is a fraternity, and the senators are the fraternity, and since there is no examination for intelligence and information, sometimes a bisexual Brazilian ends up in the in the house floor because there is no test. There is absolutely no test of intelligence or IQ. And if you can, if you're a good entertainer, like the gentleman, the Brazilian cross-dressing Brazilian gay guy, the way he found out, as long as you're a good entertainer and you have some good stories to tell about your non-existent Holocaust grandparents, if you're a good storyteller and you like your crowd, you like to tell stories, you can be a candidate for some office or another.